DNA structure and function. So we're going to go into the discovery of DNA function to start with. So if you remember back to September, we talked about 4 macromolecules. They were carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. It's supposed to be a C. And so nucleic acids include things like DNA and RNA. So scientists knew that there were these 4 major types of organic molecules, and what they wanted to do is figure out which one was the genetic material. And so we'll talk a little bit about how that happened and how they figured out that it was nucleic acids, and then about how they figured out the structure of DNA. And then we'll talk about DNA replication, and then after that we'll talk about how DNA makes RNA, which makes proteins. So that's the big picture for this unit. How did scientists figure out what macromolecule makes the genetic material? Remember, macromolecule means big molecule, like carbohydrate, protein, lipid, nucleic acid. So which one of these could hold a code? So what do we know about codes? So let's look not to biology, but let's just look to languages. So the English language, for example, is made out of 26 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc., etc. And you put them together in a special order to make words, like that. And you put the words together in a special order to make sentences. And all these things convey information. So if I write down this stuff, you'll know what it means. So now these letters convey information. Exciting stuff. Here's another code though. You don't have to use English. You can use Morse code, which can then be translated into English or whatever language you want. So this is a series of dits and das. So that's a dit, that's a dash. Dida, dida. So anyway, my uncle did this in World War II. He was a ham radio operator. And so if you look at the simplest code, SOS, dit, 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 da da da, dit dit dit. Quickest thing to type that means something like help. So anyway, here's the code. So D is da dit dit, and you can use these series of really just 2 pieces of information, right? A dit or a da, and then the pauses between the letters to convey information. So here's another code. It's called Morse code, and it's made out of dits and das, or dots and dashes, whatever you want to call them. So dit dit dit, da da da, dit 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 means SOS, help help help. So there are only 2 symbols here, the dits and the das, and they're arranged in special orders to convey ideas. Living things are made out of molecules, so we can't have something that you would write on paper. You need something that you can physically make a person or an oak tree out of. So living things somehow pass on traits to their offspring. Is my offspring going to have blue eyes or brown eyes? Will it make leaves or skin? So which molecule could code for the hereditary information? Which molecule could have some kind of code in it? And so here are the possible candidates. The macromolecules are the ones that you learned in September, and you learned their elements and their building blocks. So the macromolecules are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. So scientists knew it would have to be one of these because these are the major molecules in the body. The elements for carbohydrates, carbo is carbon, and hydrate would be water. So CHO, and if you remember the ratio, it's CH2O. The building blocks for carbs are monosaccharides. Oops, we'll get there. Okay, so the lipids are CHO. Proteins have a couple of others. They are, remember all of them together, the most common macromolecule elements are CHOMPs. And proteins have everything except the phosphorus. So CHONs, which is kind of funny, remember, because it has all of them except the P. And nucleic acids have all of them except the S. So the building blocks of carbohydrates are monosaccharides. The building blocks of lipids are glycerol and fatty acids. For proteins, it's amino acids. And for nucleic acids, it's nucleotides. So you memorized all that in September. So what we're going to do is go through each one of these and figure out if that could hold information. So let's look at carbohydrates. Let's see. This particular carbohydrate is made out of glucose to glucose to glucose to glucose to glucose to, and this one is glucose to glucose to glucose to glucose to glucose. Not a lot of information in this. This one is starch, that's glycogen, and the one at the bottom that looks like a rope is cellulose. Really, they're made out of the same molecule over and over and over again. There's not even two letters like with Morse code. There's just one. Maybe there could be some kind of different configuration, but not for something like like glycogen. It's just really the same thing over and over again. So scientists thought that it was pretty unlikely that carbohydrates would be the hereditary information. So with carbohydrates, usually you have the same unit, usually glucose, and it repeats over and over and over and over and over again. Does not seem to convey a lot of information. So now let's look at lipids. You've got glycerol and fatty acids. And again, there's really not much to this. They kind of look the same. They might have different lengths to the carbon chains, but pretty much that's it. So they are made out of glycerol, that's this part, and fatty acids, which are these long things, these long chains of carbons and hydrogens. And again, there's not a lot of information there. So let's look at proteins. Now, proteins are kind of special. They have 20 different letters, remember? So proteins are made out of amino acids, 20 different amino acids. So there's alanine and valine and leucine and isoleucine and proline and methionine and phenylalanine and tryptophan and glycine and serine. 20 different letters. That is a molecule that you can build, and you can put these amino acids in different orders. That sounds like English, doesn't it? 20 different letters, sort of. You could imagine a language with 20 letters in the alphabet. Scientists were pretty convinced they had it here. So this sounds a lot like a language, and scientists really, really thought that proteins were the, uh, the hereditary molecule. They really believed it. And they were wrong. But anyway, let's look at the one that really turned out to be the genetic material, nucleic acids. This is a picture of DNA. Nucleic acids are made out of nucleotide monomers, which remember have a sugar, a phosphate, and a base. The sugar is the same in all of DNA, a little different in RNA, but the same in DNA. If you're looking at RNA, it's the same sugar throughout the whole RNA. Phosphate group's a phosphate group, there's not much there. But the base is what varies. You can have adenine, thymine, guanine, or cytosine for DNA. And so this can be different. So there are actually 4 letters here. So nucleotide monomers for DNA have 4 different possible bases, A, T, C, and G. That one's thymine, that's cytosine, here's adenine, and here's guanine. And so you don't have to memorize, I'm not going to make you memorize the structure of these to draw them for me, but you do need to know the 4 bases, A, T, C, and G. So nucleic acids could hold information too, but scientists really thought it was less likely, probably because we're made out of, because we are used to a language with 26 letters. So proteins just sounded so much more plausible. So of the 4 candidates, carbs, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids, scientists suspected that either proteins or DNA were the genetic material because both were complex enough. They had variations, some kind of repeating unit that could actually change which order you put them in, and that could hold information. So how did they figure it out? Here are some early studies. Here's Fred Griffith with his dog. He was trying to make a vaccine against pneumonia, a bacterium named Streptococcus pneumonia. So that's a bacterium which causes pneumonia. And he did not end up making the vaccine, but he did figure out some kind of interesting stuff. So I think I'm going to save Griffin's study for my next video.